Okay, good morning everyone. So, welcome back to the session related to your unit 3. So, today from this particular session, we'll be discussing about your second part or the second half of your third unit, that is nothing but your virtual management technique. Okay, so before discussing about this, just want to give a glance related to what you meant by virtual is nothing but which doesn't exist in reality. And something you're showing it up that it does exist, but in reality that doesn't exist. So that is what we call it as virtual thing. So here we will try to provide you, like in the previous session, I asked you people that whether can we run a 4 GB movie on a 4 GB RAM. So basically we can run it up and how we have seen in that particular session. So how we can do that, we can run a 4 GB memory, a movie in a 4 GB RAM that we have seen it. Okay. So basically what happens, since this is not only the movie we are going to execute it, we will be executing other applications as well. So if you sum up the total memory you have used for these applications, that will be much more higher when compared to the size of your RAM, whatever you are having. So that is what we call it as virtuality. So nothing but, for example, you have executed on that day a 4 GB RAM, a 4 GB movie. Okay, you have executed or you have run a movie which is of size 4 GB. After that, you might have opened a document to perform some kind of documentation which is of size 1 MB. Okay, and then you started writing some programs. Some programs on that day you people might have executed something like 200 MB, something you might have used for that. And then again, if you come across to your songs, you might be listening some songs, MP3 songs. So that might have taken around some, 1 GB of data you might have consumed, means you might have used the memory. Maybe so the whole day, how much you people have executed the application? These are the applications executed. If you sum up it, it's around 5 GB and 201 MB. 5 GB and 201 MB you people have actually executed on a single day on your system. But what is the capacity of your RAM you people are having is 4 GB. So here what happens here is the user will think, the one who is not having much knowledge on regarding the system, he will think that I am having a lot of space, lot of physical memory, so I am able to execute this much amount of what are the applications we have? These many applications which are having a capacity of 5 GB, 201 MB, I'm able to execute. But actually in reality, he is having a physical memory of only 4 GB. That is what we call it as virtual. Means actually that doesn't exist. 5 GB RAM we are not having exactly in our system. But in virtuality what happens? We are showing that we have around 10 GB or 20 GB of memory. So that is what we call it as virtuality, the one which doesn't exist. So here in this particular concept, we are going to discuss about the technique, how we can virtually try to provide information, means how the user will be provided with a convention that there is a lot of memories available. You can just focus on your programming, whatever the program is writing. Then down that you people can focus on. So let's start the session. So in this particular memory management, this virtual memory management, we'll be focusing first, we'll have an introduction to virtual memory, and then we'll discuss the technique. Like in the previous sessions, we discussed about memory management technique, something called as paging, right? We discussed about paging now, and then we discussed about segmentation. So what are these? So these are memory management techniques. Now in this session, we also have one more technique. This is a virtual memory management technique. It's a virtual memory management technique, demand paging, and this is most important. Now in this, we'll be discussing the basic concepts, what we have, what do you mean by page fault here. So whenever the page fault comes, what are the steps in order to handle those page faults? And based on that, we will try to analyze the performance of that particular demand paging. Like we discussed in paging concept, the effective access time, EAT. So we use it some kind of formula. We have also seen in the previous session some problems. We have taken some values and we try to find what is the effective access time for this particular paging technique for our system. Same way here also we are going to see we are going to evaluate the performance of a particular demand paging. After that, we have a concept called as copy and write. It's a very small topic here. Okay. Copy and write is nothing but it will be trying to write one particular page only when it is required. So that we'll discuss it. This will discuss in the next session. And followed with that, we'll be discussing about the page replacement algorithms. So here, what are the steps we need to do in order to page replacement? So page replacement is nothing but we already discussed in TLB. We are going to place the different pages. Not only TLB, even the page table. The page table, whatever we have, we are placing some data here, right? We are replacing some frames. CPU is generating some page number and offset. This page number, from this page number, this will be acting as an index here, and from there we try to find the frame number, and that frame number we are mapping up with the page displacement, and then we are getting the physical address, right? So same way here also, that pages like this particular table is filled. Now a new page is coming up, so definitely that page has to be placed in this particular page table. So in order to place that particular page in the table, since the table is already filled up, we need to remove one of the page. So which page to remove, how to remove it, for that we use some algorithms here. So that is what we are going. So what are the steps to do that page replacement we'll discuss here, and how we can take it up. So we'll be discussing here. So we have some algorithms here. Like you have first come first serve, then we have something called as optimal. So like this we have another least recently used. These are some of the algorithms what we will be coming across, and based on that we will be working on this. And finally the types. So type is nothing but what are the different types we do have, that we will be discussing here. And finally, but last but not the least, is nothing but thrashing here. So we will discuss this thrashing, how it exactly works and what exactly this is when we'll come across that particular. So today's session will try to cover till demand paging. Well, so before discussing about that demand paging technique, let's have a small introduction related to exactly whatever we have revised. I mean, whatever we have discussed in the previous session. So in the previous session, we have discussed that what is the main purpose of memory management here is nothing but allocating this memory, means whatever the pages we have that we need to load into your memory and then execute it. But basically, the main goal of that particular memory management technique is more number of pages of different processes should be present in the main memory, so that multi-programming concepts can take place. What it means to say that multiple programming means multiple processes should be executing simultaneously. That is the main concept. And in order to make that particular concept happen, we are using that paging and segmentation technique. So in the previous session, what we discussed that paging, what it does, so whatever the process we have, that will be divided into different pages. Now we will be load those pages into in your RAM, and that will be executed. Now here in this paging and segmentation technique, what is the main problem here is that they expect that the entire process should be present in the RAM before they start executing. This entire process, whichever we are dividing into pages, all these pages should be present in your main memory, that is nothing but your RAM. Then only it should start executing. Well, that is highly impossible, right? That's not going to work out. Why it is not going to work out here is because if the entire pages we are placing in the RAM, there exists some problem. What is the problem here is, at a time we may not require all the pages. That I will explain with a small example so that you can understand it. Okay, just have concentrate here. I will not write the full program, just a small sample I'm writing. Let us suppose you people are writing a C program. Okay, you people are writing a C program. And in this, you people are using a switch statement, and you want to perform something like matrix. I mean, what's not matrix? Normal multiplication addition means normal arithmetic operations. What we perform, that you want to perform. So you will be given some choice. You will give some choice like one for add, or maybe two for subtract, three for multiplication, four for division. So when you write the program, you will ask for enter choice, right? So when you give the choice, let us suppose I gave 1. So you should get an output of something, the equation called C equal to A plus B. This is what the expression you should execute, right? So for that you people are writing. Means what happens whenever the one time you're executing a program, so it will be executing only one of the case. It will not execute all the 3 cases, right? You're entering a choice. Now whatever the choice you people are providing, only that particular logic is going to get executed. Whatever the remaining logic then, that will be just ignored, isn't it? For example, next time again you are compiling and you are executing, you are giving a choice now. So when you give a choice here, you are giving a choice of 2. So what does that mean? You are trying to do subtraction here. So the system will perform C equal to A minus B, and it will perform you the output, and it will come out of that particular program. Your process is completed, isn't it? So what happens here? So at a time, you are writing a program like switch CH. So here we are writing case 1. So C equal to A plus B. This is for addition. Okay, return C. And then break. I think this is the way we write a switch model. I'm not sure, but just for understanding sake, I'm writing like this. Same way, C equal to A minus B. This is for multiplication. So return C and break. Now please concentrate here. Now this particular case, what did I say in the previous session, that whatever the program you're writing, this will be divided into pages, right? The program will be divided into pages. Now let us suppose this is one page. Let us suppose 5, because we have something here main also, and before that we have header files, so on, some variables, and then this logic. Now this case one is present in page 5, and after that there is another page. So this is your page 6. So same way, let us suppose multiplication you are saying page 7, and for division you people are using page 8. Now, when you people execute this program, you will be executing only one of the page. Either you might be using page 5, that is nothing but addition, or you might be using page 6 for subtraction, or maybe using page 7 for multiplication. Only one of the operator you people are executing it, not all. But in the previous techniques like paging and segmentation, what they are saying is, whenever a process is going to execute, whenever the program is going to execute, that particular program should be totally loaded in your RAM. So what he means to say is, this particular page means this entire program should be present in this particular RAM. Like here page 5 here, page 7 here, page 8 like this. But here the problem what is coming here is, when you execute this program, you people are using page 5. What about page 6, 7, 8? You people are not using. What does that mean? Unnecessarily, we people are just wasting the memory, the main memory. We are unnecessarily wasting it. Why? Because whenever you are executing, you will be executing only one of the choice. It may be either case 1, case 2, case 3 or case 4, but not all at a time. So it is of no use of placing all these pages in your main memory. Suppose you are executing page 1, I mean page 5, only that you should load it. What about page 6? These all should be present in your backing store. I hope you are getting my concept, what I mean to say here. Okay, so that is what the problem in your paging and segmentation. They expect that all these pages should be mapped first to your main memory, and all should be present in the main memory so that the execution can start place. So before execution, all these pages should be dumped into this particular RAM. Then only the process can start executing it. But after this technique came, that is virtual memory management, this has changed totally. Virtual memory management technique, what it does, it tries to execute a program which is partially present in your physical memory. Because see, if you people are actually loading like this pages, what happens, your memory will be filled with only one or two processes only. Whatever the other processes, they might not get a chance until these processes are completing. So it becomes very hectic, isn't it? So in order to overcome this, we actually come to this particular virtual memory management. Now this is a one type of technique. Now what this particular technique does is, it tries to execute a process which is partially present in your RAM. That is nothing but your main memory. Means not all the pages will be present in your RAM of this particular process. Only the pages which are required to execute this particular process, that only will be loaded in it. Like you people might be doing like an addition. The addition is your case 1 and this is present in your page 5. So only page 5 will be loaded here, and apart from that, one more page will be loaded where your variables A comma B variables you are giving, and C, that particular page. Let us suppose that is page 1. So that one. So only these two pages will be loaded, and the arithmetic operation will be performed on them, and whatever the result you are getting, that will be stored. Then what about the page 6, 7, 8? Well, that will not be loaded. So next time when you will execute a program, you might be using a second option, case 2, that is nothing but subtraction. Then in place of page 5, page 6 will be loaded, because page 6 consists of subtraction logic. And that logic will be applied on this page 1. So page 1 consists of A variable, B variable, C. So whatever the operation you are performing, C equal to A minus B, that you are getting from this particular page, and you are executing. So this is the way how your virtual memory management works. Okay. So in this way, what happens? It has lot of benefits. So what are the benefits usually it does have is, it allows the programmer to be free from the size of a program he is writing. Earlier, whenever the programmer has to write a program, he has to wait because he has to see what is the size of the RAM. Suppose this is 4 GB. So he knows that from 4 GB, some amount is occupied by your operating system. So we are left with something like 3.5 GB. So 0.5 is occupied by your operating system. So whenever he is writing a program, he should make sure that is not exceeding 3.5 GB of your program size. Okay, so that is the main problem. But now what happened due to this virtual memory? What happens is it actually divides your logical address from your physical address. And this logical address, you can show it like, it's a very huge memory. So here the programmer doesn't have to worry about, okay, so I have to write a program which is limited to 3.5 GB. No, no, no. They can write even for 4 GB, 10 GB, whatever it is, and irrespective of what is the memory size of your main memory. So based on that, they can write the program, and because of this, what happens? Only we are allocating only few pages of each process. So within the RAM, multiple pages can be executed. So we can execute multiple pages. So definitely when we are executing multiple pages, obviously that comes under multi-programming. So you people are performing multiple programming. Multiple, so here multiple programming is actually taking place. So that is what he's saying in this particular scenario. Let's go ahead so that I can show you the diagram. So here, this is what I want to show. We have something called virtual memory. I told you, virtual memory is nothing but this is the virtual memory actually separates the logical memory from your physical memory. What is the logical memory you are having? So logical memory, what exactly we will be having here? So in the logical memory, whatever the CPU is generating, right? Logical address we are saying, P and offset, that comes under logical memory. Now this particular logical memory will be separated from your physical memory. So here this logical memory may be much more higher in size. Like for example, as I told you, the physical memory is of size 4 GB. What about the logical memory? It can be represented as 10 GB. This is virtual. Okay, that's why we are calling it word means actually we doesn't have a memory which is of size 10 GB. We actually in reality we have only 4 GB, but we are showing to the user that we have 10 GB of memory. That is virtual. Why? Because using a physical memory of 4 GB, we are able to execute the program. We are able to execute the different applications which are much more higher in size when compared to the physical memory. That is what is saying in this particular scenario. That's what virtual memory is. Okay. And moreover, coming to the virtual address space, this is nothing but since we, as I stated earlier, the CPU generates a logical address, right? Page and offset. So that is what is calling. This is what we call virtual address space. So here, whatever the page is determined, so we will be mapping with the paging table. From here, we'll get a frame. That frame we will be adding with your displacement, and then we are storing that information in your main memory, right? So that technique entirely is what is talking about your virtual address space. Now this entire process, who is going to take this particular process? We have discussed in the unit 2 something called as memory management unit. So this is the one which is going to do this particular operation. I think it's very clear. In the first half, we already discussed it, memory management unit. Okay, so here the memory management. Now let's enter into the main topic. That is nothing but how we can apply this particular virtual memory is using a demand paging technique and a demand segmentation. Well, the basic concept what we have to discuss here is demand paging. Let's go ahead and show you what I mean by demand paging. Well, this is a diagram related to your virtual memory representing with your physical memory. Okay. Now I hope you people know what you mean by this. This is your backing store. So backing store is nothing but you can say this is a hard disk, hardware disk. What is there in your system? Okay, it will have slots like this. Now you people have to remember them. This will be your memory will be in this particular slot, and within this block we are going to add your processors or whatever the images we do have. Now look at here. This is a physical memory divided into equal number of frames, right? These are the frames. The frames will have numbers. So, well, the numbers will be depending upon your bit. Like our system consists of 32-bit and 64-bit. So based on that, this memory size will be, by default, I'm writing like, 4 zeros. So here 4 GB na, so let us suppose 4000 MB. I'm representing, okay. So because it is 4 GB, so I'm representing in MB format like this. But basically it will be in the format of bits, not in MBs and GBs. So depending upon the bit, whatever you have in your system, based on that, it will be represented, that many bits. Now here we have a memory mapping. This is something like a page table. Now if you look at here, this is a virtual memory. This is something, the new concept that comes here, virtual memory. Now here, if you look at it, the size of this particular physical memory, you can see how many slots we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. We do have only 11 slots. But if you come to your virtual memory, you will not be having 11 slots. You will be representing around 256 slots, 500 slots, something like that. Means that doesn't mean that you have that much of capacity. But we have an internal technique using which we can try to map these 256 entries with the help of these 11 entries. We can solve the problems, we can solve the requirements of the user just by mapping this 256 or 500 entries in this particular memory with your physical memory, which has only 11 slots. How we can do it? That is the technique we have seen in paging and what we call segmentation. Same thing we are going to use here also. That is what we call it as demand paging here. But only thing is we have a concept called as this particular virtual memory, and this is much more larger when compared to the size of your RAM. This is your main memory, physical memory, RAM. But this is what the concept is exactly whole about. Okay, so let me first explain your demand paging, and then we will discuss that. Okay, so here, what exactly we are going to do here in this particular concept is, I'm going to explain with the help of this particular diagram. I think you people are familiar with this diagram, code section data. I think this is in unit to the first part we discussed in operating system, that every process will have this particular. The code section will consist of the code which need to be executed. The data section will consist of global variables and all. Stack consists of functions. Heap is used for allocating dynamic memory allocation. Now this gap, whatever you people are saying, this is what we call it as a hole. I think you people know this terminology hole. When we discussed about best fit, worst fit, and we have first fit, right? So whenever we allocate this hole, so we call that as a hole. So here this is the one we call it as virtual address space. Yeah. So in the second unit we did not say anything regarding this. We just said this is a space, empty memory space. Now this space is what we call it as virtual address space. Now here, whenever dynamically people are allocating a space to this particular process, this heap will increase like this in a upward direction. So here we'll be having one frame, another frame, another frame. Same way we will allow the stack also to increase, okay, in a downward direction based upon the requirements or the functions whatever we are using in the process. And whenever we are allocating this memory, then we have to map this to the physical memory. Okay, this is not the physical memory. This is related to your virtual memory I'm talking about. This is a virtual address space. Now this virtual address space, if you people are allocating memory dynamically, these slots, whatever I'm showing here, this has to be mapped with your RAM, your main memory. Okay, only when you are allocating it. If you're not allocating here, you don't have to allocate that to the physical address. That is what is saying in this particular scenario. So here we have a sparse address. We call this as a sparse address too. And the best part of this particular thing is shared libraries. We have here shared libraries here. I don't know how many of you know in the previous section we discussed about shared pages. Shared pages. In the shared pages, we discussed about a concept that we have, okay, just I'll show you the page. We do have three processes here. In the shared pages, we discussed that there are three processes here. Okay, P1, P2, P3. So they were using editors, editor 1, editor 2. They were using three editors. So he is using editor 1, editor 2, editor 3. And he is also using editor 1, editor 2, and editor 3. I don't know how many of you remember this. And finally, we have data 1, data 2 and data 3. And here we had a RAM, your main memory. This is your main memory, that is nothing but your RAM. And this has a fixed slots, right? Fixed size range. Now, if you remember in the previous session, what did we do is we added editor 1 somewhere here, editor 2 somewhere here, editor 3. Actually, how many processes are there here? 3 processes, and 3 processes are using 3 editors. So total how many editors? 9 editors. But what we did in the previous concept is we tried to share these particular editors among the 3 processes. So within the RAM, we placed those particular applications. That 3 editors we placed it, and these editors are shared among these particular processes. Now, when these processes are sharing this, what this process is thinking that these 3 editors belong to this particular process. At the same time, what this process is thinking that these 3 editors are belonging to this particular process only. No one else is using it. Same way here, this process P3, what is doing? He is thinking that these 3 editors only I am using, no one else is using it. But actually, what is the background concept working on? Here, the operating system have loaded these 3 particular editors in the RAM. And from here, virtually, he is sending these editors to these 3 processes to perform the execution. So within the RAM, we are not using 9 slots. We are only using 3 slots here. And these pages, these editors, we are simply sharing it. What about the data? Yes, every data will be different. So we have 3 data slots. So this is the way how your virtual memory works. The same concept is getting explained in this particular virtual address space here. So that is what we call it as sparse address space. So here what exactly this happens in sparse address is, whatever, like for example, you people have written multiple programs in C, okay? So all the programs you people might be using header files, std, io.h, yes, std, conio.h. You people might be using this program, these header files in every program. Let us suppose you people try to run 3 different programs written in C simultaneously. Means 3 different processes you people are trying to run. Now all these processes will consist of this particular library, isn't it? All these processes P1, P2, P3 will consist of this particular header file. Now, if you consider this, this process will think that these 2 header files belongs to this particular process only. And what about these 2 processes? This will think that this particular process is having only these 2 header files. And P3 will think that these 2 processes have been owned by me. Now, actually in reality what happens is, within the RAM, we will be, since these 2 particular header files are used by the 3 processes, they will be stored here in your RAM in one of the frame 1, frame 2. Now what the operating system will do using this virtual spacing, he will allow this particular header files to be shared among these particular pages, the processes. So all these particular header files, whatever we are defined here, these will be accessed by these particular processes. But virtually these processes will think that they only own that particular header files. But actually those header files are what being accessed by the multiple processes simultaneously. That the user will not come to know, neither the process which is getting executed. That they will not come to know, but only the operating system knows the reality. Okay, so that's what it's saying here. System libraries will be shared wrapping into a virtual address space. Well, this is all related to your virtual address space. Here, this is this is the diagrammatic representation. If you look at here, this is your process 1 and this is your process 2. Means you people are written a program, C program, add dot C, let us suppose subtract dot C are written, and you people are executing these 2 programs simultaneously. Now definitely you people will be having a shared memory here. That shared library means nothing but your std, io.h, conio.h. Now this is your RAM. Within the RAM, in one of the frame, these shared pages have been placed. Now from here, these pages are distributed to this particular process, from here to this particular process. So whenever this process is executing, he will think that this entire shared library is his property. And the same way the process P1, when he is executing at the same time, he will think that the shared library is his property. But in reality, that is not the case, because that is been shared from the RAM. Your main memory is sharing them to both the processes simultaneously. That is the best part of your virtual memory. That's what we call virtual. But actually what this process is thinking, this library owns to this particular process, this library owns to this particular process. But in reality, that is virtual. But in reality, these libraries are present only in a single slot, that is in your RAM, and it has been shared among these two. That is what the difference we have with the help of this virtual paging. Now let's come to the main technique what we were talking about demand paging here. So in the demand paging, this is the diagrammatic representation. Now demand paging uses a paging concept. Remember, demand paging uses a paging concept. Along with that, it will use one more concept called as swapping. Yesterday in the previous session, someone asked me, sir, whether we will be implementing swapping or not. Yes, we are going to implement swapping here. The paging technique, whatever we discussed, the same process. Along with that, we are going to swap it. Now, how this demand paging works? Well, whenever we want to execute a program, I want to execute a program. This program, like earlier technique, like in paging and segmentation, what we discussed is whatever the pages, this program will be divided into pages, P1, P2, P3, right? Pages. Now, these pages should be loaded in your RAM, in your main memory. Then only it can be executed. Then only the execution starts. But demand paging is not like that. Demand paging executes the process which is not totally loaded in your main memory. Means partially loaded also it will execute it. How? So here demand paging will load only those pages which are required to get executed for that particular program. Like I gave you an example of your first run, switch case. Okay, so whenever you people are executing this program, so page 1 to page 4 will be loaded in your RAM. But 5, 6 and 7, 8, these pages will not be loaded in your RAM. When they will be loaded, when you people are giving the choice, like I asked you, enter choice. If you click 1, then page 5 will be loaded. Means you are demanding that I want to execute that. Addition perform, I want to perform addition, you are demanding. So based upon your demand, only that page is loaded into RAM. What about 6, 7, 8? That will be stored in your backing store. This is your backing store. This is your backing store. So I hope it is very clear. That's why it is called as demand paging, means loading a page whenever it is demanded. Then only it will be loaded into your RAM and then it will be start executing only that particular page. Whatever the remaining pages means, they will be present in this particular backing store. Next time, if you execute the program, you give a next choice as 2. So what is the choice for 2 here? Subtraction. So that page will be loaded from your backing store into this. Assume that this is the addition, subtraction. So here, when you give something called as subtraction here, the addition will be swapped out and the subtraction page will be swapped in. And then it will execute your instruction and it will provide you the result. Maybe 3 minus 2. The output you might be getting as 1. So this is what means this particular technique will load the page only on demand whenever you're demanding. That's why it is called as demand paging. Now this technique uses something called as lazy swapper. Lazy swapper. We have a terminology called lazy swapper. Yeah, I already have presented here lazy swapper. Now what this lazy swapper does is, it will try to swap only the pages which have been requested by the user. Like I told you, enter choice, you are giving 1. So only page 5 is loaded. So this is what we call lazy swapper. But this terminology, whatever we are talking about swapper, this refers to a process. This swapper refers to a process, swapping. Swapping what it does? It swaps the entire process. But here we are trying to swap the pages, not the process. So they have removed this terminology swapper and they started calling it as a pager. So we can call it now, the demand paging has lazy pager. This pager will try to find out the pages of a particular process which need to be executed. Remaining pages will be stored in your backing store. That is nothing but your hard disk. So I hope it is very clear here with the help of this diagram how exactly your demand paging works. Now, since as I told you in the previous techniques, whatever we discussed, what we are doing, we are bringing the entire process into your main memory and we are executing it. Means all the pages related to one process, we are bringing into this particular RAM and we are executing. That's fine, not a problem. But here there is some problem. What is the problem here? We are not loading in this, we are not loading all the pages of this particular process. Only few pages we are loading, and with the help of that execution, we are trying to execute this particular process. Now in that case, what happens? Some of the process pages are present in this backing store, while some are present in RAM. Then we should keep a track of it. The operating system should keep a track, isn't it? That which pages are present in your backing store, which pages are present in your RAM. That has to be keep track. Or else what will happen? We will not be coming to know who is executing, who is not executing. It will become a lot of clumsy. Khichdi type it will become, so we will not able to find out. The operating system will not be able to find out. So to overcome that, we require a hardware support. To overcome that, we require a hardware support, and that hardware support is provided using this something called valid invalid bit. I think in the previous session we discussed about valid invalid. The page table will consist of a frame and a valid invalid bit, if you remember it. If not, you can just go to the previous sessions and you can see. I will show you with the help of a small diagram. Here it is. Okay, this is swapping in and out. Yeah, this one. Okay, I think you people remember this, valid, invalid. Now using this, we will come to keep track of whether which pages are present in your RAM and which are not present. For example, every page, whatever the logical memory is having, will have a frame number. Now with the frame number, we will add one more bit called as valid, invalid bit. So if the particular frame, whatever you're allocating, is having a valid V, that indicates that it is a valid and legal address, and we can store the information in that particular frame. If it is represented with invalid, that means that that particular page is not valid, means that particular frame is not valid and we cannot allocate and no one is trying to access it. Like as I told you, we have case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4. Now, if you are executing case 1, let us suppose this is case 1. This will be having some memory called as 8 and this will be set as valid. Now only this particular, then only this particular page can be accessed. Means 8, where is 8 here? So this will consist of the logic related to your case 1. Now what about 2, 3, 4? These are invalid. So 2 is invalid, 3 is invalid, 4 is invalid. Okay. Next time whenever you are executing it, this time you have given a case 2. Let us suppose you have switched case 2. You want to do subtraction. Now what happens? 1 will become invalid. Now no one can try to access this particular page. Why? Because it is set to invalid. Which one you are executing? Page 6. I mean what we call that, page 6. That is nothing but your subtraction. Now this is set here as valid. So within the page 6 consists of a logic related to your subtraction. So the instructions from here will be executed by your RAM. Then what about this case 1, 3, 4? Those are present here. Those are present in this particular backend store. So this is the way how we can try to keep track of which pages are present in your RAM, which pages. So all the invalid bits which are represented here, those are present in your backing store. All which are we are representing with a valid bit, those are present in your physical RAM. I hope it's very clear in this particular scenario. Okay, what do you mean by valid and invalid bits? Well, mostly this is used in that case only. Okay, so here that will be taken care by your MMU, memory management unit. He is the one who is going to do that. Now, in case, let us suppose suddenly you want to access another page, which is actually not referred before. Okay, that's a new bit. Let us suppose you want to access this particular page 1. You want to access right now. How you can do? First, the system will try to find out what is the bit it has been set up. So here it is written as invalid. So this will result in a trap. Trap in the sense nothing but you are trying to access a page which is not valid. Now what happens here? But he wants right now. Earlier it was invalid because he don't want. But now this process wants that page to get these terms, whatever he want to execute. For that he requires this particular page. Now in that case, what we can do, we need some technique that we can load this particular page into your RAM. So we have to convert this into valid and then we have to store it up. Like that we need some kind of technique. So what technique we can use, that I'll show you in the next slide here. You look at here. So that is what as I told you, that you want to access that page that results in a trap, right? The page which is set as invalid, I, is what results in a trap. That trap is what we call it as page fault. Means the system is trying, the process is trying to access a page which is not present in your main memory as well. I mean, still not know, even for the first time also, that page is never brought into your main memory. So, but he wants right now that page in order to execute his task. So we need to bring that page for the first time into your RAM. So that is what we call it as page fault. So whenever this kind of scenario comes, that particular page is not present in your RAM, then we call that as a page fault. Because that page is not there in the RAM, that's why we are calling it as page fault. So how we can allocate this means we do have some steps here. So these are the steps what we are going to apply, and this is the diagram related to it, point wise. So here this is your main memory, your RAM. Now here the first step is, it will try to, your process is trying to access a page which is not there in your main memory. Now first what the system, operating system will do, it will check the internal table. This is your page table. So here it will try to check for that particular page. So that particular page is set as invalid. So what did I say? Whenever it is invalid, we need to terminate a process. Nothing but it's a trap. Now that trap is transmitted to the operating system. Now this operating system, what it will do, it will hold that particular process from execution, and in the meantime, it will try to find that page in your backing store. See, that particular page is present in your backing store. From that particular backing store, that page is loaded into your physical memory. That particular frame means this particular page will be given one frame. Wherever the free frame is available, that frame will be allocated to it. Okay, so we are bringing here, this particular page is loaded here. Now whatever the frame number is there, let us suppose this is 7. That number we are again updating in this particular corner, your page table, and we will restart this particular process again. I hope it is very clear here how it is working. Okay, the system is trying to access a page which is not present in your page table. Okay, means we did not assign that to, means that particular page is present in your backing store. We did not bring it up, we did not allocate any frame to this particular page. Now what the system will do, the process requires this page to get executed, whatever the task is executing. So what he will do, he will first try to load this page into this particular frame. Okay, with the help of the operating system. Operating system is doing this work. So once it is loaded here, whatever the frame number we got, that we will update in this particular table, and the whole process will start executing again, right from the beginning. So it will start executing. So this time what happens, whenever the process tries to access a page, this bit is set to valid, and it is already given a page number. So from here we will get the information. So same, frame, displacement, executed. This is the way it is going to execute the entire work. This is the way how we can handle your page fault. I hope it is very clear. Simple steps. Okay. Finally, what are the different aspects we do have? There is another terminology called pure demand paging. Let's go in short here. So pure demand paging is nothing but only whenever the process is requesting that page, then only it will be accessed, means loaded into your main memory. That is what is calling it as pure demand paging. If no process is requesting it, then the operating system will not load that page in your main memory. So that's what we call it as pure demand paging. Now here, what are the hardware supports? Whatever we discussed in demand paging requires the page table, so secondary memory, that is nothing but your swapping backing store, and instruction restart. So whenever a page is not there, we are trying to load that page from the backing store in your RAM, and then we have to restart that process again. Okay, so that whole thing is what comes under this particular demand paging. So worst case, means worst case in the sense something like for you people are trying to execute a process from the beginning where no pages are loaded. So in that case, what happens, every time you try to access a page, that page is not present in your memory. Okay, I'll explain this. Let me give 3 minutes here. Suppose this process is having page 1, page 2, page 3. Okay, this is your RAM. So here, what he's saying is, this is a fresh process came, no pages are loaded in your RAM. So whenever this process starts executing, what will happen? It will try to access page 1, but this page is not present because what did we say? A process can execute only if this process is present in RAM. But right now, RAM doesn't have any pages related to this process. So whenever this process tries to access this particular page, it will result in a page fault. Why page fault? Because that is not present here. We need to load it up. So here the bit is set as invalid. Now what the system will do based upon the steps, whatever the page is there, that will be taken from the backing store. Here these pages are present, P1, P2, P3. So here the P1 will be loaded from here to this RAM P1. So some value will be given here. Okay, this is page 1. Okay, so some value is given 4. This will be updated in your table. So in place of that invalid, it becomes valid here. Valid and some value here. So page 1 is given some page 4. This is the way it is going to work. So each time what happens every time. So whenever you try to access page 2, that is also not there. Again, same process. We need to stop this process. Restart means we need to execute. Means load this particular page to here. Some value 7, 7, valid. Then paste it in this way. And again, every time you have to restart this particular concept. So here, that is what it's talking about as worst case. Means every time you want to access a new page, you have to interrupt. You have to, that results in a page fault. So that page fault is explaining here. These are the steps need to be followed. So we have total 12 steps. First, trap the operating system. So whenever that particular page is not present in your main memory, trap it. After trapping, what we need to do, since we are stopping the process, definitely the process might have completed some task. So we need to save that task. Means whatever the registers is using, what is the process state, nothing but your PCB, that need to be updated. Once this is done, determine the interrupt was a page fault. So we need to determine whether whatever the interrupt has been taken place, is it due to the page fault or is it due to higher priority process came or something like that. So if it is a page fault, then we need to check for the location where that particular page is present in your backing store. So you need to get that information from the backing store and process it. So issue or read from the disk means nothing but, so that particular page need to be loaded from your backing store, right? So that backing store, how we can do it means we are using these 3 steps in order to do it. What is that? Wait in a queue for the device. So in the meantime, since when you, we have a concept called as CPU utilization right here. So whenever you try to access a page from this particular backing store, what you are doing is you are performing swapping, isn't it? So when you are performing swapping, I told you that CPU will not be utilized. He is in idle state. In that meantime, we can allocate this CPU to some other process, whichever is present in your ready queue. Okay. So that is for that he is giving these particular statements. These are the statements related to that. Now, while waiting, he is allocating CPU to some other user. As I told you, next process we can allocate it because here the process is getting swapped. The pages of the process are getting swapped here from the backing store to your main memory. But in the meantime, the CPU is sitting idle, so we can allocate another process to it. So once this swapping concept completes, we can receive an interrupt from the disk, and based on that, we can perform the operation. And whatever the process is executing, we can stop that process, bring it back to the backing store, and then whichever the process was executing earlier, we will bring that particular process back again and start execute. Okay, so this is the way how exactly this process works. So these are the 12 steps you people have to remember because these are common steps what we have. And finally, the last but not the least is performance of demand paging we have here. So how we can calculate the performance of demand paging means we do have a formula here. Now the formula is based upon EAT 1 minus P star MA plus P into page fault time. What do you mean by MA is nothing but your memory access time. How much time it takes to access your physical memory. Means from backing store to you people are storing the information now. So that's how much time it is going to take. And what is the page fault time is nothing but how many times that particular page fault is taking place and how much time it is taking to bring that page into the memory. Like, as I told you, in the page table, you're trying to access a page. It is invalid. So, but the process requires that page. So what we need to do from the backing store, we need to swap that particular page into your RAM. So it takes some time from here to here. That is what we call it as page fault time. Memory access time means how much time it takes to access this particular memory. What do you mean the P here is nothing but probability here. The probability that a page fault will occur is a probability. So basically, the range of the probability is in between 0 and 1. So here, what is the probability we have? Either a page fault will take place or either the page fault will not take place. What is the probability the page fault will take place is nothing but 50%. Since we have two coins, like your coin have two dice. What is the probability of getting a head? Yeah, 50%. Now what is the probability of getting a tail? 50%. Same way here also. What is the probability of getting a page fault? 50%, that is 0.5. What is the probability of getting not a page fault? 50%. So based on that, that remaining 50%, how you are getting is nothing but based on this 1 minus p into MA. I will explain this with the example so that it becomes very clear for you people. See, let us suppose the memory access time he is giving. So to access the main memory, it takes 200 nanoseconds. And for every page fault, to swap in that particular page fault, it takes 8 milliseconds. So based upon the formula, what we can write 1 minus P into 200. PMA, memory access time is 200 plus P into 8000. So you people will be getting something like this. This is now something like 200 minus 200 P plus 8 0 0 P. So if you remove this, you will get something like 200 minus 7 999, so 800. Okay, yes, just subtracting it. So if you see here, this EAT is directly, if you remove this, whatever the values we have, EAT is directly proportional to the probability of getting a page fault. The more the page fault, the more will be the estimated access time. Okay, the less the probability of a page fault, the less will be the access time. So that is what it's saying. So this is represented in a microseconds format. That's why he has represented into 8000000. So okay, I hope it is very clear with this. You might have understood how it is doing it. So if we want performance degradation less than 10%, then definitely the value should be greater than this, or it can be lesser. The probability should be less than this much. Then only we can perform it. Okay. So this is the way how we can try to estimate our system performance, but only condition is you should know what is the memory access time you people are going to get, and whenever a page fault occurs in your system, how much time it is going to take. If you have these values and what is the probability of that, and based on that you people can calculate, and it becomes easy. If you know the value of P, it becomes very easy to know how your system performs, your lapis are going to perform. Well, this is all about for today's session. Thank you for watching.